good morning or good afternoon, wherever you happen to be out there in the world today. Thanks for joining us here on Level Up with your Sinclair Method Coaching. Today, I have Steve Roe back with us. Steve, it's been a while.
Has
We
been a
talk
while.
we talk regularly and chat over email, but it's been a while since we've sat down and talked. How are you doing? How have you been?
All good, all good. I think the last we were chatting a lot, obviously, earlier in the year with the marathon, doing the marathon in February, um, and yeah, since then it's been great. That felt very much for me doing the marathon for Option Save Lives, like kind of not a closure, but it's like the whole process of finding out about the Sinclair method after years of desperately. I wish somebody had told me about it before. Um, Realizing that I wanted to be one of the people that advocates for it and helps people through the program, and then doing the marathon in February was like it was like a thank you and a closure, and let's go from there. So life's been good. I've just been happy not to be doing training runs in very warm Seville heats, to be honest.
Yeah, understandable. We're a little on the hot side here in the KC metro area, so looking very longingly at the long-term forecast when it's supposed to start cooling down just a little bit very
Yeah,
soon.
we're
So
never
yeah,
happy though.
yeah, I it's funny. I lived in Florida for so many years, and now that I'm out of perpetual summer,
Yeah.
I can't wait until I can pull out my sweaters and sweatshirts. And it's like, I realized that I don't want warm weather. I want cool weather. And then I want to just layer everything and bundle up
Yeah.
and have that coziness as opposed to the heat that I have no control over.
I agree, and I say I agree. I moved from the UK to the hottest city in Europe, so it sounds like I don't love the cold. But every year, not just yet, but every year in October, I really miss autumn in the UK and that kind of crispness and, like you say, layering up and stuff. But yeah, getting used to it, becoming more Spanish, trying to.
Well, that's fun. So, usually we talk about we start out on an icebreaker about any games that you're playing or interested in right now. We're here on Twitch, so
Do you know what? I'm not a big gamer. Sorry, Twitch. However, I've recently been looking just this last week. It's really strange that you asked me about games because I haven't done it for years. I've been looking at getting one of the either like one of the retro consoles that I
okay.
remember from my childhood, like the Atari STs or Commodore 64, or you can get kind of like the handheld ones now with all the old games on it. So I'm not playing anything, but I have been researching nostalgic games from my childhood.
Yeah, I know that on my Switch I have access to some of those old, more nostalgic games. I don't end up playing them, but I
Yeah.
think there's just a comfort in knowing that they're there. I
Yeah.
have a few that I'm pretty sure about a year and a half ago, maybe it's been quite a while. I downloaded them so that I could play them, and like good old fashioned Zelda, like the
Yes.
original, like big old pixelated.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Exactly. I think when I was looking at those games the other day, I'd see the front cover, I'd see things like, don't you remember, like Treasure Island, Dizzy, and then after that came like theme park, theme hospital. I remember playing, loving building hospitals, which is very random. But I was looking at the front cover, getting really nostalgic, being like, I'm going to buy one of these consoles and I'm going to remember my childhood. And then you look at the pictures of the games and they're so old. I'm like, I'm not sure whether I'd actually play it. I think I just like the idea of it.
Yeah. Uh,
But
you know, it's interesting that that leads me into a conversation I was having with one of my clients this week, where sometimes having the comfort of something around is more beneficial in the moment than actually having it. So for some people, It's okay, I'm at a point where I'm not necessarily wanting to drink all the time, but knowing that I have alcohol in my house that I can drink,
Yeah.
but choose not to,
Yeah.
is sometimes just enough to say, okay, I've got that reminder of control.
Yeah.
What what's your experience with that?
I just see people, the majority of people, and I know that I did this, but when you're going through it, you know, you don't necessarily read it. You're just so desperate to get to a good point with it. I see the majority of people at that point just so confused with where their head's at, and one part of their brain saying you've got control, and then they're feeling guilty for still thinking about alcohol. But then they're like, I'm doing an alcohol program, so I suppose it's got to be in my brain. And then obviously there's the part where, which generally I, I try to leave it as long as possible, the habitual part, so I get the medication kind of settled in as far as possible. So you're buying kind of enough willpower basically to be able to do the habitual stuff. But there is a really confusing point where you know that the desire's gone, you know that you're not enjoying it nowhere near as much, but you can still have these random moments, or you can be stuck in a plateau for a while struggling with that habitual element of things. And yeah, it's a strange one. That's why with the idea of extinction for the neurological side, we can see where that's going to end. And I always really struggle when people want to get to extinction overall with habitual included, because I think that can dip in and out of life depending on certain circumstances, and it confuses people because they're like, hang on, I thought there'd be a specific day when I felt extinct. And it just doesn't
Yeah,
work like that, but you get used to it.
and what I have found myself along those lines reinforcing with people is there's a reason that when you take your medication and you wait the amount of time and then you follow that with alcohol, that's called an extinction session,
Yeah,
because extinction is happening little by little, literally every single time you
yeah,
follow the protocol,
yeah,
until your cravings are at a manageable or disappeared place.
yeah,
And so I'm trying to counter that confusion by reminding people that every time you follow the protocol, it's working,
yeah,
and that your response in that night is completely different from your results, because the
yeah.
results are what you can see.
Mm,
And I think people are missing the I respond to or don't respond to naltrexone or nalmefene,
yeah,
thinking of results. And the results are what come down the line with the combination, as you said, of the extinction process plus
okay.
the work on the habits, the thought processes.
Emotions.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the and it like one of the hardest conversations I have with people is naltrexone is not going to just magically change your thoughts and your behaviors on alcohol. It takes away the cravings so that you then have that capacity to do it on your own, but you're not going to wake up one day and say, hallelujah, it's worked.
yeah,
And this is the day that everything is just from here on out better, because
yeah,
well, it would be amazing if it worked like that. And you have a couple of outliers who, for whatever reason, have they've
yeah.
got their crap together a lot of times before they start the Sinclair method, and so they already
Take the time.
have those
Yeah,
pieces,
yeah,
and they're already in place, just waiting for the medication piece to pick up with them. But most people don't come into this process with all the other pieces in place already.
yeah. Absolutely. Or some of them, and you don't know. You know that's part of the whole process in figuring out kind of where you're at. And people do every single time I speak to someone for the first time, and I say, "Okay, we're starting out the process. It's not a magic pill," and everyone says, "I know, I've read about it. It's not a magic pill. That's the one thing you all tell me." But everybody who goes into this process is so desperate for change that they're hoping they'll be the one-off where it's a magic pill. And so 3 weeks in, they're like, it's not working for me. And the one thing I always try to say to clients is, again, sorry, go back to that neurological extinction point a few months in, is what you're doing and drinking on a day-to-day, weekly basis. Yes, I want to spot that. I want to see patterns. Above all, I want you to be motivated. I want you to react quickly to the medication, and I want you to see some results, because some people don't see massive results at the start. But I always say that is secondary. If you're taking your medication every time, we're waiting to just get to 3.5 months, please. I'm not very bossy, but I guess I'm bossy with that. But they want to see that kind of day by day change, and it just doesn't always work like that. That's secondary for me.
Yeah, and I definitely see that as well. I tend to see people who are coming to me after they've kind of hit that first plateau of the medication's done most of or a lot of what it can do, and they're in that transition phase where trying to work as a partner with the medication is, it's not always easy, because let's face it, is stressful, and you're taking something that, alcohol has a purpose in your life, even if it's not, even if the ultimate effect is harmful. There's a reason that it's there. Whether your body is, through addiction, first your body is saying, hey, I need this to live, I need this to survive.
Yeah.
and so that's a big thing that you've got to get through. But then it's, well, what led to the repetitions that got your body to that spot?
Exactly.
Is this what was modeled for you as a way to deal with stress? Or hey, celebration means you go drink. You're sad, that means you go drink. I have to do this for work, for networking. So therefore, and so there are things that, everybody wants to pathologize it and say, oh, well, there's something wrong with you and that's why. And a lot of times it's not nearly that bad. It's that somewhere in the part of being human, alcohol became entwined with something that you're doing in your life.
Yeah.
And the hardest thing is knowing that when the cravings are gone, how do you change this?
Yeah.
And a lot of people will focus in on, this is something I have to fix about me. And I find, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. I find when you are focused on change as something you have to fix, as though you are broken and that there's something wrong, and when you throw all of this into a negative, that it unintentionally makes it much more difficult to make the changes, because you're internalizing and heaping shame upon yourself, because you're not making a change because you want to feel better and better yourself, but because you feel that it's something negative that has to be squashed out.
Yeah. I think it just goes back to what we've always been told, in terms of, you have an alcohol problem because of genetic disposition, trauma, stressful situation in your life. And the abstinence models treat it as it's been in your brain waiting to come out. You were born this way. There's all of those suggestions, but it's those things can have an impact on you, maybe becoming irresponsible with drinking or over drinking and going through a stage, and that can lead to it. But then it's the learned behaviour that is the problem, and it's not your fault. But we've been told this. It's ingrained in us. When I was in London, and I was trying for years and years, I could feel my alcohol issues were getting worse and worse. I was seeing every expert therapist under the sun, doing different forms of therapy, different forms of talking therapy, CBT, support groups and everything. and I was digging for a trauma that wasn't there because that's what I was told I should do. To fix the problem, you need to fix the trauma. Like I say, trauma can absolutely be, a triggering thing to lead to the learned behaviour. But I was exploring not being a very happy teenager. I wasn't a very happy teenager, and there's, could be called trauma through that. I'm not sure, but I was digging, thinking there's something that I don't know about that I'm not getting out here. But I was spending years not hitting my head against a brick wall because there was nothing further into it. There was nothing I needed to investigate. And when I got through the neurological side of the Sinclair method and I was feeling in control, you get clarity and it all became clear like, oh, no, I'm all right. As in, I don't need to explore anything. Some people do, and that can be tricky. It can expose other things that might be wrong, and that might be the old trauma, or about mental health. It might be a marital problem where they think alcohol is the reason why they're not getting on, but then you take the alcohol away and there's still problems there, and there's all those kind of things. Um, and I do feel for people because we're so encouraging to say get through the neurological part as soon as we can. In that point, we'll work on habits, behaviors, your triggers, building a kind of new life around alcohol. But they can feel still very stuck at that stage. So they're like, "What? Why aren't I feeling anything?" And that can be emotional issues that kind of need looking at. And I suppose that's the point where we'll step in and say, have you thought about kind of doing something different? But I always, and I used to worry about this when I first became a coach. Maybe I'd get someone 4, 5, 6 months in and they were still struggling. But with more and more experience, I've realised that trust that the neurological side is done. It might not always be obvious for months. You might be having a really crap year or dealing with some kind of stress. Whenever that stress dies down and life gets better, it will kick in. And I used to worry about that, telling clients that, but I've seen it happen so many times now where it's just a bit of a waiting game for some people. Just so many people react to it differently, right?
So while you were spending those years looking for this, supposed root cause trauma that didn't actually exist, how many times did someone who was supposed to be in a position to help you say, "Well, you're in denial," or "You're just not, you're not recognizing it, or you're not trying hard enough, or
Yeah.
you don't want this bad enough, and that's why you can't seem to find this thing that actually didn't exist for you."
Yeah, I think during the therapy years, that looking back over them, everyone was very therapists I was paying were very kind, surprisingly, in terms of trying to kind of help me out with it. But I would I'd sit there. I'd be like, "Oh, that was nice to talk about myself and relieve some stress, for over the last hour." Also, I'm not saying that counselling does work. Therapy is great. It's just that, for example, just using my example, but I used to leave the room being like, "Yeah, that felt liberating, felt very nice. I'm sure I got something from it. This isn't fixing my alcohol problem." Like, I'd go to the pub, but where with what you're talking about, that kind of like tough love approach, I got that. I did get that in AA, and it really knocked me for six. Well, rehab and then AA. Yeah, yeah, saying you're not praying hard enough, and never trust your own instinct again. And I can see that some people need that, but I don't think the majority of people do. And it just makes you, on both sides of it, with the therapy side where it just makes you hate yourself even more for having an alcohol problem, and then you drink more because of it. And I used to find myself coming out of AA meetings and having a beer because I didn't feel listened to and I felt really put down. And yeah, it didn't work for me. That model, that I think the majority of people, I think we're seeing now the majority of people struggle with that model and that tough love approach. And it's a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, I see. I find myself, not just with my clients, but just with people in the TSM community in general, I see myself trying to help people unwire that internalized shame. And I mean, honestly, I think some of the ways people are talked to simply because they struggle with an alcohol addiction, I find that it's borderline abusive. This you're not trying hard enough, and it's the you say you felt not listened to, and when someone feels continually dismissed, and when someone feels as though their concerns and their reality isn't being taken seriously,
Yeah.
like that has this residual effect. And I find in particular that people who have done AA ahead of time before starting the Sinclair method in some ways struggle a lot with this, because that disempowerment
Yeah.
was at the core of everything. It's don't trust yourself, don't touch the alcohol. Your thought processes are not to be trusted unless they are saying don't drink. And
Yeah.
so the take a pill, wait, and drink, and even seeing reduction happen, even seeing alcohol free days start to work in,
Yeah.
there's still that it's almost as though there's a carried over trauma from their AA years that they're trying
Yeah.
to work through, because they feel guilty even through their TSM progress because they're drinking it all.
Yeah. 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 And there's things as well. I found I walked out actually. I think it was step 4. I'm always very careful not to completely criticize it because I know it works for some people. So I was put that to one side. But step 4 was resentments, and you write a long list of people and things that you're resentful of, and then you have to write a couple of pages on why it's actually your fault that you're resentful. And I just I, I couldn't understand it, and I was being forced to think of more things that I was resentful of, and then I was told I wasn't thinking hard enough about how many resentments I've got, and I was like, my sister, am I resentful of my sister? And I was right, and I'm like, I got through that one. And I was like, I'm not resentful of my sister. I don't know what this is trying to get me to do here. Yeah, it's really disempowering. I think when people do come from AA and start the Sinclair method, I think you're absolutely right. There is some kind of unraveling there to do. But when that sense of control comes, whenever it feels like it's come, whether that be week 2 or month 6, that self-worth comes back. That feeling of control. You just see people like shine again. They'll come on and be like, I felt something. I think I like myself. I'm like, yes, get it out.
Yeah, having that ability to choose and
Yeah.
say, okay, I can choose to have an alcohol free day today, or I can choose to have one drink. And knowing that no one's going to beat you over the head because you had that one drink.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, just, and every time, and I keep telling people this, every time you make an intentional decision while you're on the Sinclair method, whether that is to have an alcohol free day or whether it is to follow the protocol and drink, if it's an intentional decision,
Yeah.
this is one more way to prove that you can trust yourself.
Yeah.
Like, I find that as people's trust in themselves and their ability to begin to actually think about what they're doing, whether it's drinking, whether it's not drinking, whether they need to self-soothe or take some self-care,
Yeah.
that repeating the act of making a conscious, intentional decision about alcohol is what really starts to get somebody
Yeah.
to realize that, no, you actually can't trust yourself.
It's the weirdest part of the job when a client will say to you that the night before I was wanted to have an alcohol free day, and I was fighting off the cravings, and it was really difficult, and they might have had one or not. And the weirdest part, alcohol moderation coach says, have the drink, take the pill, and have the drink, because you don't realize how much trust yourself, you're building up of yourself. Or if you feel like you've overdrank, you're just giving the old brain what it wants, and you're also telling it, "No, I'm not going to give you that reward anymore." So you're kind of winning anyway. But yeah, the weirdest advice to give when you're trying to get someone to reduce is, no, go on, please do it, because we trust in this medication so much, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, it's always weird to me when, someone who's drinking every single day. And there are most people, or I shouldn't say most, but a lot of people who come to the Sinclair method start off by drinking every day.
Yeah,
And that's just where they're at, and that's why they don't want or that's why they want the Sinclair method to begin with, is because they don't want to be drinking every single day for the rest of their life and
yeah,
feeling like they are kind of beholden to that. And there's a there's this mentality that, okay, yes, the Sinclair method is is a dual function type of
yeah,
process. You definitely benefit from having alcohol free days. No,
yeah.
no doubts about that. You benefit when you have a non-drinking day. However, some people try to push that first non-drinking day before they're ready. It's like
Too soon. Yeah,
if you're drinking 7 to 10 drinks every single night of the week, jumping into an alcohol-free day
yeah.
is probably not your best bet. And it's like, okay, so what can we do to shorten your drinking sessions first?
Yeah,
Can we shorten your drinking sessions? You set it so that you're only drinking 6 hours or less. Can you take that 8 to 10 and bring it down to, you know,
yeah,
7 to 9?
yeah,
Just
yeah.
let's start chipping one off the top and making some slow progress.
And
Um,
even within that, things that I notice make a huge difference is people look at their Monday to Sunday drinks. Most of the time, 90% of the time, people want to get rid of their weekday drinking for the sake of it drinking. When you break that down and you say work with these goals Monday to Thursday, relax on the weekends, and it seems less consuming, and you start to get those. I feel like you start to get better results on those weekdays quicker, getting those drinks down to be able to introduce your first alcohol-free day.
yeah, and I think a lot of that is, we're conditioned that when we're in a period of self improvement, we must always be charging forward at full speed,
Yeah,
and that's not possible. I mean,
yeah,
we wouldn't get in our cars and put our foot on the accelerator all the way down and drive our car at top speed without ever pumping the brake or stopping to, like, rest the engine a little
I'm
bit.
gonna use that analogy. I like it. I'm gonna steal
Um,
that.
it's and yet we try to do that with progress when we're trying to improve ourselves. I had an alcohol free day today, so that means I should be able to have two,
Yeah,
or
yeah,
hey, I had one, so maybe next week I should try to go alcohol free. And it's like, wait, how hard was that one? Was it
yeah.
difficult? Did you plan for it? Did you have guardrails in place? Did you, like, schedule something to keep you occupied, or did it come, like, naturally and you weren't expecting it? Because
Yeah.
all of these things are, like, if you really worked to set up that alcohol free day, unless you're willing and able and capable of putting in all of that work every single day, which you're
Yeah.
probably not, or else you wouldn't need this, because you've got some pretty good tools.
Yeah.
You gotta first just kind of pause and say, okay, I had one. Can I have one next week too? One,
One. Yeah.
you know.
And also it can take a really long time. Like daily drinkers, the daily ritual evening drinkers after work, that I find they struggle the most to have an alcohol free day, and that can take months and months and months. But I think that when they get that one alcohol free day, they think I'm going to have to do all these months again to get to the second one, but it doesn't. There's not immediate, but there is a domino effect. The more confidence that kind of kicks in, I find.
Yeah, exactly. And I also find that the quality of the day of the alcohol free day also plays a big part in it. If
Yeah,
you're having your first alcohol free day because you're forcing your way through it and you are miserable and you really overdid it last night and you feel hungover and you feel sick and well, if you have a bad alcohol free day as your first one, you don't have anything positive associated with that.
yeah,
And so that's the danger if you push yourself too fast and too hard into an alcohol free day,
yeah,
where if you've cut your drinking back through through the week and you're not having 10 anymore, now you're having 3. Well, you're probably going to have a much easier time having an alcohol free day when you're not drinking 3 drinks that night than you
yeah,
would if you would have been drinking 10.
yeah, yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, it's not just something that we say to make your alcohol-free day rewarding in a different way with natural endorphins. It really you see that connection quite fast when people get in the habit of doing that.
Yeah, I read an article uh, late last week, I think it was, and I was like, well, of course. And it was on motivation, and it's like, and basically the article boiled down to, in order to stay motivated for any kind of behavioral change, do something that you enjoy. The more you enjoy your the changes that you're making, the more
Yeah,
likely you are to actually continue them.
yeah,
And so again, I think this comes back to mindset a lot of times too, is people are stuck focused on alcohol bad, drinking bad. I have
yeah,
to do something to stop that, as opposed to, I really enjoy going out to the museum
yeah,
on a Saturday afternoon, and I get to go do that because I'm not drinking.
yeah. And the other side of that is they might have a drink in a situation where they love it, where they actually want it in their life, but there's still that alcohol's bad idea. And it's like, hang on, let's try and figure out where you want this to sit. Is this something in 2 years' time that you'd be happy going to that event and having a drink? Yeah, actually, I think I would, but it's not easy to see that when you're in the midst of it all.
Right. Right. And that's and it's really unfortunate because I think it slows people's results down because they're just they're very hesitant to just trust themselves. And again, I think a lot of this comes from the societal view on, if you have an addiction, how dare you have no power over it, so you must walk away.
Yeah, and yeah, exactly. And I've done a couple of TikTok videos recently where I've spoken about how I think the grey area drinkers, the silent majority that are struggling, are all thinking, I don't want to get rid of alcohol completely from my life, but there's no other way. They don't know about the Sinclair method, so they just struggle on. And I think there's like a guilt there as well to kind of say, alcohol's causing a problem in my life. It's causing a problem to me, maybe people around me. But I'd quite like to find a way where I could moderate. And there's like a guilt with that. It's like, how dare you, when this has been something that's had such a negative role in your life. I got challenged recently on, and it's a fair question. Like, why would you still want to drink alcohol? I was in rehab. My family were devastated, and why would I still want to drink alcohol? And it's not about me wanting to carry on an indulgence. It's not about me wanting to have my cake and eating it. And it's about winning back control of something in your life that you are told, and we're told by the media and everything, you will never be able to do that. For me, doing this and still being able to have a couple of drinks a week was the best thing that's happened to my mental health by far. I've been a different person since that, and it's not the best thing that's happened to my mental health because I enjoy having a few drinks every week. It's because of what's in my brain and what I know about my control for it.
And so we've got about 20 minutes left. So let me talk a little, or shift this a little bit to something that a lot of people struggle with, and that's as the cravings go away, you have to learn how to deal with things like stress and things like that
Yeah.
in your life. So, like, was that something that you personally struggled with?
I think mine was difficult. To be honest with you, it surprised me coming into this. Like you said, that probably the majority of people are daily drinkers, and you find a lot of, like I say, those ritual drinkers. I was very much a. I found this out while I was going through it. I was a heavy social or binge drinker. I didn't want to drink every day. It's just that when I drank, I'd pick up my first beer and I just had no stop button at all. So it was difficult for me to judge. There wasn't really anything specific emotionally other than I just want to have fun. I didn't used to drink more because I was stressed or more because I was happy or bored or anything. It would just be go for it basically. I was more of an explosion thing. But with talking about other people that I've worked with, I think that there are things that you have to do, like I say, when you come out the neurological side. But if you allow your life to be as natural as possible, your drinking to be as natural as possible in the first 3 months, and not try to control it, you will be feeding those emotions. There'll be things that are coming up day to day. You'll take your tablet, you'll have a drink, you're having a stressful day, and the emotion of stress will link to not getting that reward. So I think there's two sides to it. There's still some stuff normally that needs to come out in the wash, but a lot of it just comes out with the neurological process, as long as you're not trying to control the neurological process so much. And you're kind of just living as you're working it by giving the brain and body what it naturally wants and what it's naturally wanted for years, rather than being like, I'm going to sit down with one beer and a pill every day. If you do it the natural way, those emotions probably get looked after a little bit more.
Well, so we do see a good number of people who use the Sinclair method who are binge drinkers. And of course, the first thing I always tell them is if you're just a binge drinker and not an everyday drinker, that means you have built in alcohol-free days already.
Yeah.
First of all, don't force yourself to drink on your normal non-drinking days. Don't
No.
like these are your gift and your superpower that you have built in already. So if you're a binge drinker and you decide that you think that the Sinclair method is going to work better or faster if you just start drinking every single day, all you are doing is creating a new drinking pattern that you didn't
Yeah.
have before you started. So please, please,
Yeah.
please don't do that. You have your alcohol free days, keep your alcohol free days.
Don't treat it like a science project. Basically, treat it like a natural life. Carry on with your life. It was problematic before, but carry on with it and trust us that the pill will give you a protective layer, and that's the best way to do it. Drink as you feel led for as long as possible, and then we'll work on other bits when we can kind of spot that you've got enough willpower and drive and confidence to face some challenges and goals, I suppose.
Well, and I think that when people are binge drinkers and come to the Sinclair method and have the same type of pattern that you did, where again you weren't drinking overly because you had some massive trauma that you were trying to drink away. You weren't drinking because you were stressed and you needed to like check out. You were
Yeah.
drinking to have fun. And let's face it, the traditional addiction system is not set up to give you resources for that, because they're so hyper focused on fixing a problem that if you don't have the problem, that they assume that you absolutely must, because why else would you drink? Um,
Yeah.
then it, like, you kind of have to figure out your own resources on that. So how did you first, like in the beginning, practice trying to figure out where your stop point was? Cuz that's huge, because
Yeah.
when you drink and you go from that first one being you just keep going,
Yeah.
it's a different level of hard. So talk a little bit about kind of what your process was to
Yeah.
start gaining a little bit of control in your stop point.
Yeah, I think a lot of people. I think a lot of people that have got very strong habits. The daily ritual drinker I keep talking about, they can struggle with the process in terms of getting through, in terms of speed. It can feel very plateauy. They might not notice the biggest changes when you see an initial drop from the medication, and then they look at people like my process and, as binge drinkers, and because you're a binge drinker, because you haven't got that routine, and it's all a bit more um, erratic. The story of my life when I was drinking, erratic, is just definitely be a chapter in the book. Um, is that I found, and I think probably this is a binge drinker thing, you will feel the effects and you'll see a bigger drop at the start because you have a stop button. You're not going to have those 12 drinks because it's really hard to drink 12 drinks on naltrexone. Um, but I would say my journey was very much where we see the graphs are like a roller coaster. I did all the usual ups and downs that we see: the medication working, the old brain kicking, fighting back, you telling it it's not getting the reward. But instead of like a nice soft one, mine was very kind of erratic. So I feel like I got to a good place with it very quickly, but it was a roller coaster ride. And the way I think I accidentally kind of found things like limits. By some days I'd have a few drinks and I'd be like, I literally have no interest in having more than one or two. And other days I'd want to be my old personality. So when I was in London, I was always the party boy, the one that would organise the party. I'd always be the first one there getting the drinks in. I'd always be the first one getting the shots in, and I'd always be the last one on the dance floor at the end of the night. Um, and people making jokes about me being hungover the next day. And I didn't want that anymore, but I hadn't said goodbye to that character. And there's still a part of you when you're in that role where you think that people want you to be that character. And so there's that process as well. I'd go out here for daytime drinks. I'd take my pill. I'd not properly plan, and I would try to be my old self, and I would outdrink the medication. I'd force drinks down me to, number one, try to get that buzz, but number two, be like, yeah, I can still stay out with everybody. I can still enjoy my drinks. I can still get the shots in. And I was, standing in bars and nightclubs, like crying, thinking that I was failing this method that I thought was going to be the game changer, that all the results show it's a game changer. And looking back now, I needed those moments. Those were moments of me just saying to the brain, nah, no, thank you, don't want you anymore. But when you're in it, it can be it can be painful.
Did you try any of the moderation techniques that to try to reduce your binge drinking on those intentional nights?
I don't think I did. I think it would have helped me, but I don't think I did because that was all I'd worked on for probably around 8 years, and I just sat in support centres and therapy and have a glass of water between drinks, push your first drink back an hour. I felt so patronised by most of these techniques because they don't work without the medication normally when you've gone to a certain point. So I don't think that I put enough effort of combining the medication with what I'd learned because I was just so resentful of feeling like I'd wasted all my time trying all of those things. Now, knowing what I know now, it is a good idea to pull back on some of those resources, some of those learnings, and have faith that even though they haven't worked for the last God knows how many years, at some point when you're taking the medication, they will kick into play and help you. So yeah, I was quite a rebel with my process.
And
Being a
it
coach,
still
everybody,
worked. It still worked.
yeah, yeah. Being a coach, I think everybody sees me, and you're motivated as a coach. You turn negatives into positives, but people assume I had an easy ride, and I really didn't. Like I was a fast responder. I knew that this was going to work from the first day I took a pill, but I really went on a roller coaster ride from there. I remember thinking, kind of month 2, month 3, I've got this. Still had my moments across those months, but the moment that I suppose my extinction, even though I still think that kind of comes and goes, was when it was December and I was going to Las Vegas to a concert. And I was like, and then Christmas was coming up straight after that. And I was like, this is going to be a tricky month for someone that's just coming out of an AUD problem. And I went to Las Vegas and I'd been there a few times before and can't remember most of it. I just wasn't interested in drink when I was there. It wasn't my priority. I was interested in other things, shows, the concert. I had a few drinks, and even that felt a little bit forced. Came home, well, went home to the UK. Christmas, had a couple of drinks here and there, complete control. And the January, I remember the first week of January, thinking, "Oh my God, 9 months ago, you were." I was thinking about leaving Spain and giving all of this up and admitting defeat and maybe looking at AA again. And I'd reached this point where I went to Las Vegas and had a crazy Christmas, and alcohol did not cause one problem at all during that period. And that was very liberating after 9 months of roller coasting.
So maybe we need to come up with a new term for this moment, since it's because you and I know that that's not an extinction moment. It's not this moment of time where suddenly extinction has happened.
Yeah.
Because it's Claudia's always referred to it as the like aha moment
Yeah.
of but it's more that as you just put it, a liberation. It's that moment where you recognize that you're in control. You have, you've worked with the medication to the point where like, it's back in your hands now.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly that.
So we're
Yeah.
gonna have to put our heads together and come up with a new way to put this terminology on here so that people don't get confused and think that this is the moment of extinction, because extinction happened long before that. Every single time you took the
Yeah.
medication and drank.
And different people will think of or want extinction to feel a different way. That's why people say to me, when do you think I'm going to reach extinction? I drink like this, I'm starting on the program. When do you think it'll be? I can't give you a specific date. And also, I believe that it happens with some people, if everything falls perfectly. But like I said to you, in that January, that felt, and I'd always say that if I had an extinction, that was an extinction. But then, and I think about this with clients now, months on from that, I'd still, on a Friday, be thinking about having a beer all day. And after work, I'd be like dying for a beer. And then I'd be like, does alcohol still have control over me? Or is this
Yeah,
how
let's
normal
let's
feeling the
talk about that
weekends?
some, because that is so common.
Yeah,
And so many people will have those days and they are just overwhelmed by fear that the fact that they're thinking about alcohol, whether they drink it or not,
Yeah.
that the mere thought of it throughout the day, or maybe even over the course of a couple days, means that they're back at square one, that this didn't work, that the process, that something is wrong with them or the process, and they're never going to be free. And the fear comes from a genuine place of knowing that your life is better
Yeah.
and not wanting to go back. So I would never want to minimize that fear, because there is a lot of legitimacy to that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But let's talk about ways to calm that fear, I think, because I don't want to say that the fear is wrong. It's based in something that isn't correct, but the fear itself is very real and it's very valid. So let's talk a little bit about how you approached that fear and learned to live with that and mitigate it and have it not overtake you in the process.
I don't. I've just explained that story about me, but I don't. I remember having those thoughts, but I don't think it was anything I massively had to overcome. I think it just naturally came with time for me. If I talk about it at a client level, working with different clients, like I've had clients that might be having 50 drinks a week, they get down to 5 drinks and they'll say, I don't feel like I've got control over this because I think about alcohol sometimes at 4 o'clock on a Thursday. And I'm like, you working an alcohol program, you chat with me every week. Of course you're going to be thinking about alcohol, but also where's that point? And like you say, I've got no specific answer with how I would deal with someone on those fears because it's so individual. I kind of treat it person by person, and I kind of like I play a bit of trial and error with that person rather than say this is the formula to stop you from thinking like that. And you also don't want to, dismiss the way that they feel and patronize them and say, look how far you've come, get over it, because
Yeah, right.
that's not how this works. Um, but it is a really, really tricky one. Sometimes you do want to say to someone, come on, realize how far you've come. Um, but yeah, I think some people make peace with it. Some people I see go off and they're like, I'm okay with this. Uh, but surely I think probably time is the best healer in this because they're building up more trust when they haven't gone back to heavy drinking. I think it's kind of like a time thing, and with that they're like, hang on, I've stuck with this for some years now, and maybe I can let go of that thought of a drink on a Thursday afternoon.
I mean, I probably have two, maybe three drinks a year, but I mean, I think about it. I think about it when I go to a restaurant and I'm like, oh, I bet that I haven't had I haven't had an oatmeal brown stout in a while.
That sounds good.
I had such a super stressful July and beginning to this month that I was like, okay, I know if I drink, I'm going to feel like crap. So
Yeah,
I went out and dropped an absurd amount of money on non-alcoholic drinks. I mean, I probably have a year's supply now.
yeah,
I was craving. I wanted a cider so bad. And before I moved from Florida, I had found a great non-alcoholic cider, like
yeah,
amazing cider, and I hadn't been able to find it in the nearly 2 years that I've been in Kansas City.
yeah,
Well, it just turned out that a local liquor store could order me this cider, this non-alcoholic
yeah,
cider, but they could only do it by the case.
yeah,
So I'm like, well, I guess I'm gonna get a whole case of this NA cider,
yeah, yeah,
because it's and I'm saying that as someone who didn't get the repetitions in to actually have a physical addiction to alcohol. I had a horrible relationship with alcohol that was destructive and was
yeah,
definitely not good, but my body kept kicking in and kept me from getting the repetitions to actually reinforce it and make it an addiction.
yeah, 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 yeah.
And so I like I find myself often telling people that, you come into the Sinclair method wanting to be a normal drinker. Normal drinkers also think about alcohol sometimes.
Yeah,
Sometimes
yeah,
it's like all you can, oh my goodness, things are crazy and I just really wish I could have a drink. It
yeah,
doesn't
yeah,
mean
yeah,
we do, but whether or not we do is just simply a matter of making the decision to have it or not. And
yeah,
that's what TSM gives you back is the decision whether to drink or not. If you make a decision to go out and chase the buzz and just give up and abdicate your control for the night,
yeah,
you can do that. That's what a normal drinker does, which is why learning those tools to work with the process to
yeah,
have and just set your life up so that you're enjoying it
yeah,
and build yourself the kind of quality of life that alcohol isn't the first thing you reach for, whether you're thinking about it or not.
yeah. It's funny hearing you say about what they're set out to be. I want to be a normal drinker, and then we watch them become a normal drinker. But then they're like, "But is this how a normal drinker feels?" Because they're not quite sure. And it's like, "Yes, please run with it and take it." Um, but one thing for me, like just talking about control, the best thing for me, like I was saying earlier, it's not about the actual couple of days I drink on a week. It is that control in the sense that I was explaining this to someone earlier. At the moment, I've been in Seville for a few years, but I'm still building a life here. I'm still making new friends all the time, still learning the culture. I'm single, I live on my own, meeting new people, doing new activities. Having a drink serves me. I know that you're not meant to say that's not healthy, it's toxic, but it serves me. It makes me feel so good about myself, especially after being told other things in AA. But also, the other side of my brain is in 5 years' time, if I say I was in a relationship and we wanted to move out to the countryside, uh, I could easily say, alcohol doesn't serve me. I won't drink anymore. And knowing that and not thinking ahead to all of your years like I used to, oh my God, where am I going to be if this carries on when I'm 50, etc., is pretty cool.
Yeah, and again, when you're very aware of the role alcohol plays in your life and you are aware of your choices
Yeah,
and you have that ability and trust, and that's what this is all about. That's what this is all about. Like that is for someone who does not choose abstinence as their end goal,
yeah,
that's the picture perfect view of what success looks like. You have the
yeah,
choice and you have the confidence in yourself to know that your choice to drink or your choice to not drink on any given day is still your choice, and neither way is good or bad. It's because it's your choice.
yeah. That takes some adjustment period to take on when you're in it, but it's so true. And anybody, if there's anybody listening that has got to a point where they're frustrated and they feel like they're stuck at a plateau, if you keep taking your medication, you will get there.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Steve. Before we head out, I will say that next month, time is still TBA, but on the 24th of September, we'll have Claudia. So Claudia Christian will be with us next month in September. And then we have two monthly support meetings that we have one on the first Tuesday of every month, and our next one on September 9th, we're going to have Katie Herzog, whose book Drink Your Way Sober, about her experience with the Sinclair method. She's going to be our guest that night in our TSM as a Path to Abstinence support group. And then we have a monthly support call for the gay community, and so that's also available on the last Thursday, or on the fourth Thursday of every month. So, and that one we hold earlier in the day, 2 o'clock Central. So, anyway, it has been great talking to you, Steve.
Thank you for having me. It's been a while.
Absolutely.
We've had a good catch up.
Absolutely. All right. Thanks, everybody.